I just say that I feel very wannabe American today with my American clothes that I bought in the US, with my American drink, with the American books that I'm about to show you, and my wannabe American accent that I'm having. Yeah. Hi, I'm Em, and this is Books and Bath Bombs, and today, finally, it's been so long, but I'm gonna do my end of 2016 reading wrap-up. That is, I'm gonna talk about all of the quite few books that I read in the last 4 months of last year. So I was and still am sadly in a reading slump, but I did manage to read 5 books in the months of September, October, November, and December. Compared to normally, that is like so much less, but I'm still happy that I managed to read, and for the most part I actually really enjoyed these books, so I'm still happy with what I managed to read. And I want to start making monthly wrap-ups-ish again, depending on how much I read. So far I've read like 2 books in January, so going strong, I guess. So maybe I'll start doing, or I'll just do quarterly reading wrap-ups or something. But in order to do that, I want to wrap up everything that I've read that I haven't wrapped up yet. So we're just gonna do that now, and I'm gonna get into the books. These are in no particular order, by the way. Usually I want to go from lowest ranked to highest ranked, but I think all of these were like 4 or 5 star reads because I'm so basic in my rating. So we're just gonna go through them. The first book that I want to talk about today is A Million Worlds with You, which is the final book in the Firebird Trilogy. I've been loving this trilogy. It is super duper cliche, but it has some really unique things in it. I really like this setting and this world, even though the characters are just so cliche and there's so much drama going on, but I still highly enjoy it. It's a fun ride reading these books. With that said, this was my highest anticipated release of 2016 because I'm so basic. Naturally, since this is the final book in a frigging series, I can't go into too much details about the plot, but this series is about parallel universes. It's about a girl called Marguerite, and her parents have invented this little necklace device thingy that lets you travel into parallel universes, but only if you are born in that universe. You can't travel into parallel universes where you are not born, because you travel into the other you's body and you kind of inhabit their bodies until you move back to your own world or to another parallel universe. So that is like the base premise of this series, and the first book was okay. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was super duper cliche. And then the second book came out, and that book was so good. And the most important part is that it ended on such a cliffhanger. And like, when a book ends on a cliffhanger, you gotta know how it continues. So of course I ordered this as soon as it came out, basically, and I read it. And the thing is, I loved this book. It was probably the best book in the series until the last 50 pages. The last 50 pages were so rushed. I don't even remember them now. It's been like a month or so since I finished it. And it was so bad. Like, the main issue solved so quickly. I don't even remember how they solved it. It was so weird. And that makes me really disappointed, because there was so much potential to this series. And up until that final point, it was really, really great. And then it did this. So I think I ended up giving this a 4 stars because the rest was just amazing, but that ending was so disappointing that I had to take off 1 star. And also there isn't very much diversity in the series, so I think that's a big -2. However, something that I really want to mention is that we got some deaf representation in this final book, which I did not expect at all, and I was really happy to see that. So that's something that I want to highlight. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It's a good series. It's very cliche, so you gotta take it for what it is. But if you like YA, if you like science fiction, I do think this is a series that is worth the read. The next book that I want to mention is The Unbound by Victoria Schwab. I'm gonna try to calm down a bit now, because I realized that I talked super duper fast and super duper loud. That's something I want to work on with my channel, because I feel like I'm always screaming and like talking super fast, because that's how most booktubers do it, and I feel like that's a norm. And I remember when I first started watching booktube, and I thought that the booktubers who were speaking slowly were like the most boring people ever. And they're not, they're just different. And yeah, that's a totally different thing from what I was gonna talk about. So The Unbound is the sequel to The Archived, which is a book by Victoria Schwab that I read this summer for the Booktubeathon. I did mention that book in my 2016 favorites video because it was one of my favorite books that I read last year, so if you want to hear more about that, you can check that out or just watch my July reading wrap-up from last year. So this is also a sequel, so I'll tell you a bit about what the world is about. It's about this place called the Archive. The Archive is kind of a dimension that is just a big library. And in this library, there are people, and they kind of rest on the shelves like books. So a person who has lived and then died has a place on a shelf in the archive. But sometimes these people tend to try to sneak into our world, and there's kind of a dimension in between where they go to. When that happens, it is the job of the keepers to find the histories that they're called and return them back to the archive. And in this series we follow a girl who is a keeper, and her and her family has just moved to a new place after her brother died when the first book starts, and some shit goes down in the first book, and that stuff stays with her and it permanently marks her mentally. So this book is about her dealing with what happened at the end of the first book because it affects her so much. And I really like that. It wasn't really what I imagined because this series just feels very action-packed and stuff like that, but it took a step back from that and was very much focused on her mental health, which was super interesting because I didn't expect it. However, while I really like books like this dealing with grief and traumatic experiences, there were a lot of teen angst in it as well. I did, however, end up giving this 5 stars because I love this world and I love these characters, and I just really hopes that there will be a final book in this series. I know Victoria Schwab is super duper crazy. She has like 2 books coming out this year. She released 2 books last year and I haven't read either of them yet. Whoops. She has a lot going on, that woman, and her writing is phenomenal, so I hope that she will return to this series for a final book. I know there is a name for the final book, I believe. Hopefully that will happen someday in the future. I hope so. I love this series. It's underrated. I really think you should read it. The next book I want to talk about is another highly anticipated release for me for 2016, and that was You Know Me Well by David Levithan and Nina LaCour. I haven't read anything by Nina LaCour yet, which I don't understand why. I do have one of her books, her most famous book, Everything Leads to You, on my TBR. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I really want to because lesbians. However, David Levithan has been one of my favorite authors for a really long time. This book is about 2 teenagers, Mark and Kate, and they are both gay. And they sit next to each other in class, but they don't really talk until they accidentally meet at a gay bar at the beginning of Pride Week in San Francisco. So they meet there and they start talking and they get to know each other better, and they both have stuff going on in their lives with their love interests. So they're trying to help each other out, trying to figure out their lives and stuff. It's a very typical contemporary. It's also very short, which was something that I needed to be able to motivate myself to read since I is in my reading slump. I like the writing and I like the story. It was a bit unrealistic, I will admit that, but I enjoyed it for what it was anyway. And there was such an abundance of queer characters in this. I really enjoyed reading about that. So to summarize, was this good? Yes. Was it impactful? Nah, not really, but you should read it. The next book is without a doubt my favorite out of all of these books that I have read, and I talked about this book as well in my 2016 favorites video, and that book is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, Book 2, The Hammer of Thor. So I have loved Rick Riordan for a couple of years now, and this series is the best he's ever written. I have not read the Kane Chronicles, but I am 99% sure that not even that series lives up to this. This is the best that he's ever written, and for some reason the Trials of Apollo won the Goodreads Choice Awards and not this, and I don't understand how, but whatever. This is Rick Riordan's series about Norse mythology. We follow our main character Magnus Chase, who in the beginning of the first book is a homeless kid. His mom died a couple of years back, and since then he's been living on the streets of Boston until his uncle gets into contact with him and tells him that his dad is a Norse god, and things take off from there. Adventure ensues. In the first book it is mentioned briefly that Hammer's Thor is missing, so this book is about Magnus and his new friends trying to find Thor's hammer. The cast of characters that this series revolves around is so diverse diverse. I absolutely adore it. And in this series, a gender fluid trans character is introduced, something that I have not seen before. I have read about trans characters, but I have never read about someone who is gender fluid, so I really like that representation, and that is something that I want to acknowledge. Like, Rick Riordan started out writing series that weren't really diverse. As his writing career has gone on, he's gotten more and more diverse, and I love that, and this series is just so good. The characters, I love every single one of them. The story is also really good. It's very classic Rick Riordan, and while some people think that it's getting very repetitive, I don't think so. I feel like this is completely new, and I love it. And then, of course, the main thing that makes me love this so much more than all of his other series is the Norse mythology, because I'm biased because I'm from Scandinavia, so this is my mythology we're talking about here, and that makes me connect to this series on a whole other level. When there are words in Swedish, I understand the reference. In the first book in the series, there's a character called Gunilla, and Magnus thinks it sounds like gorilla, and I have never thought that that name sounds like the word gorilla before, and I have had a coworker whose name is Gunilla, and it's just so much fun. And what can I say? It's classic Rick Riordan. Magnus is very much like Percy in that he is a very humorous narrator, and I really missed that in the Heroes of Olympus series, so this series is just so great. And there's only one book left. It comes out this autumn. I am ready, but I am also not ready. This book, of course, got a solid 5 out of 5 stars from me. Right, the second to last book in this wrap-up is The Winner's Crime by Marie Rutkowski. I read the first book, The Winner's Curse, earlier this year as well, and I did not like this one that much. A big part of this is because I read it when my reading slump had just started. It took me over a month to finish this book. I did enjoy reading this, but it didn't drag me in the same way as the first book did. And I think part of it is because the characters had so many communication issues in this story, and it's just so stupid really, because this would never happen in real life. And somebody out there might go, but of course it wouldn't happen in real life. This world doesn't exist in real life. But that's not what I mean. Like, when a couple is having complications and you're not sure whether a person is lying or not, you just go up to them and you ask them, or at least that's what I want to do. And I realized that it does take courage when it's about your romantic feelings and stuff, but you still want to know, so you still try to communicate if you care about someone. Anyway, I still enjoy this story. Of course, I'm gonna read the last book. I have already bought it, but not a favorite. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars in the end anyway, I don't know. Okay, so the last book that I'm gonna talk about in this wrap-up, I feel like it's probably gonna be very long because I have a lot of opinions. Technically, I finished this on the 1st of January, but I read it for the most part in December of 2016, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. Some people on Twitter have been asking me about this cover. It is the UK signature edition that came out in 2010. I have the 3rd and the 4th books in this edition. I really like it. The spines are super colorful. This one's orange. It looks yellow, but it's orange. Merry Christmas to You was happening, and I wanted to join in, and a couple of years ago I started rereading the series, and I got to the 3rd book, and then I never started the 4th book, so I started with the 4th book now, and I read it, and I love it. I had forgotten so many things. I haven't read this book since 2012. I have read this book twice before. Once in 2011 and then again in 2012. So it had been 4 years since I read this book. And there were so many things I'd forgotten. I talked about this yesterday with my boyfriend. Like, one very specific thing is that I did not at all remember Barty Crouch Jr.'s speech, like when he talked about everything that he had done under the Verita serum. I had forgotten like all of their plans, and it was so refreshing to be able to remember it again, and I just really enjoyed it. I am highly considering picking up the 5th book later this year, because while I'm bitter about The Cursed Child and I haven't even gone and seen Fantastic Beasts yet, I still love Harry Potter, man. It's so good. So 5 stars, of course. And that is it. That is the reading wrap-up. You can see the books there. I just threw them on my bed when I finished talking about them. I'm such a mess. If you have read any of these books, I would love to know what you thought about them, especially Magnus Chase, because Magnus Chase is definitely one of my absolute favorite series of all time. Oh my god, I forgot. Have you heard about the fact that the Percy Jackson series is becoming a musical, or well, the first book is turning into a musical in New York City, and I want to see it so bad. And I live across the Atlantic and it sucks. But I am still super duper excited, and they released a song from it. I really liked it. If you are interested, I will leave the link to that in the description, because the Percy Jackson musical, guys. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!